What's up you guys, I'm Dan, this is Frugal Not Cheap, and today we'll cover banking in Thailand. I'll cover three main topics. First, which bank did I choose and why? Second, how am I going to move money into Thailand, in other words, international money transfers? And third, what kind of payment methods will I be using? How am I going to pay for stuff while I'm in the country? So first, let's talk about picking a bank. Now, Thailand has a number of large banks, and basically a lot of these guys have really good mobile apps. So the technology is actually quite good. My father uses Bangkok branch, which is a relatively old bank. It was established in 1944. It's got over 1,000 branches and something like 5 million customers. In order to open an account with Bangkok Bank, anecdotes are that they're, relatively expat friendly. Before there was a really cool thing where there were overseas branches of the bank, and it made it a lot easier to move money between your home country account and then also the Bangkok side as well. But it seems that this got kind of shut down, and so it's not as convenient as it used to be anymore. Let us know in the comments below if you know anything different. Anyway, people seem to find that opening a bank account can really vary in terms of how easy it is or how feasible it is to do, depending on the branch. And so most likely it'll be easier at a larger branch like the head office in Ceylon. That being said, it could become a lot more difficult now, as of this filming, there was a bit of a crackdown basically trying to fight against, scams and fraud and this kind of thing. And so the requirements for opening up a bank account as a foreigner were tightened up. And especially Bangkok branch was mentioned as being one of the ones that's really tightening that up. But basically, and it looks like this is coming more from the government, the new requirements are that you have a long stay visa or are married to a Thai national or own property in Thailand, amongst other criteria. Another option is a bank that gets a lot of good press among expats as one that's really easy to open an account with, and that's Kasikorn Bank, also known as K-Bank. Originally, it was known as the Thai Farmers Bank, and this was founded just a little bit after Bangkok Bank. It was opened up in 1945. I'm told it has an excellent mobile app. Many reported a smooth experience opening up an account, and it has a lot of branches, something like 800 across Thailand. Another bank that foreigners use is Krung Sri Bank, also known as the Bank of Ayutthaya. This was also founded in 1945, and it's actually owned by Mitsubishi UFJ Financial Group, MUFG, which happens to be the bank that my mother uses here in Japan. When she was in Thailand, though, she was using UOB, or United Overseas Bank. This is owned by a Singaporean multinational group and greatly expanded its footprint after acquiring Citibank's presence out there in 2013. So I really think that any of these could be good choices as long as you're able to open an account, but my personal pick is going to be Siam Commercial Bank. It was founded in 1904, at that time going as the Book Club, kind of sort of under the radar type of deal, by Prince Jayantamongkol. And after initial success, it was actually allowed to operate as Siam Commercial Bank, starting in January of 1907. So this is, quite a lot of longevity here as well. As of last year, there were 643 branches in Thailand, and there are also branches in neighboring countries. Along with its royal origins and long history, also the fact that the royal family is a major shareholder in this enterprise makes it a lot more comfortable for me and my main choice. An interesting quirk, by the way, before we kind of wrap up this topic, is that what we would think of in the States as a checking account, kind of the place where you're doing all of your daily transactions, that's generally going to be a savings account in Thailand. Nobody really writes checks, so you're not going to have check writing. That's more for businesses. But all of these daily transactions and having a debit card that you can use, that's going to be attached to what they call a savings account. Alright, so on to the second topic, which is how am I going to get money into my new bank account here in Thailand? Well, there are a number of ways to do it. One way that's a very expensive way that I would not do is to basically go to my bank, in my home country and exchange a bunch of my home currency into the Thai baht, which is the currency in Thailand, and then bring the Thai baht over as cash. Reason being is that the exchange rate you're going to get while in your home country is generally not going to be nearly as favorable as you're going to get once you get here. So I guess another alternative would be to take out some cash of your domestic currency, in my case US dollars, and then when I get here to Thailand, probably skip the currency exchange at the airport unless I really need it. I will probably get a better exchange rate if I go to a place more like downtown or away from the airport. And a lot of the places like, Super Rich, all these places are going to be pretty good for that. I won't need to do that, however, as some friends before I left gave me this nice cash gift of a bunch of Thai baht, so I would have sort of some spending money when I first get there, and it was a very generous gift, and thank you friends for that. I really appreciate it. Had they not done that though, another option is to take cash out of an ATM. And of course here the exchange rate is decent, but you do need to be wary of what options you push. You should be careful not to pick sort of the dynamic currency conversion. I'm not really sure about the details, but basically this ends up costing you more than just like taking out whatever the amount of baht that you want. Now, of course, the major expense here using the ATM is going to be the ATM fee. But luckily, some of us have an option to get those ATM fees reimbursed. For instance, I have a checking account with Charles Schwab that will reimburse ATM fees worldwide. So, theoretically, I could be going to the ATM like every week or every couple of weeks or something like that, but I would rack up these fees, and I think in a way that's kind of abusing the kindness or the perk that's built into that account. So that's also not something I'm going to be doing unless I'm in a pinch for some reason and need a little more cash. So finally, we get to the way that I am actually going to use, which is, of course, an international money transfer. And for smaller amounts, it looks like Wise is going to be a pretty good option if I ever just needed to top up like a relatively small amount of money. And the reason for that is that they of course take a percentage-based fee structure. I used Wise in order to pay for my Thailand privilege card, by the way. This is what used to be called the Elite Visa. And, it was straightforward, it was relatively quick, and it worked quite well. Although I can tell you it was a little nerve-wracking my first time, sending that kind of money on a digital transfer. And, all of it being new, right? Like Wise was new to me. The banking credentials for the receiving bank on the other side for the privilege card people, that was all new. So it was kind of harrowing, but of course everything went smoothly and just fine. Anyway, one note here before we move on to calculating the fees is that I'm told it's much easier if you open up the Wise account while you're still in your home country, so you can link it to your checking account or whatever and all that stuff before you head out and don't have an address there. So if we send a relatively small amount, like $1,000, then the fees are 0.88% or $8.81. That's not too bad and definitely going to be less than international wire fees. However, if we send a larger amount, like $6,250, then the fee does become a smaller percentage at 0.67%, but the amount of the fee goes up to $41.95, and this now is going to be higher than most of the wire fees that you might pay at different financial institutions. Certainly it's going to be higher than the $15 that I would pay doing a wire transfer at Charles Schwab online. I think it's $25 if you call someone, but if you do it yourself online, it's only $15. If you're curious, the break-even point, at least for Charles Schwab with a $15 fee, happens at around $2,000 for the transfer. So my plan is to do quarterly wire transfers of that. Not exactly $6,250, that's kind of on the high end. That's 1/4 of my overall budget for living in Thailand. But the amount of money I'll actually need to remit and use within Thailand is probably going to be lower than that. So after the first few months, I'll get a kind of a hang of it. I'll be able to see, how much is my rent and local expenses and all that stuff. And then I'll know how much I'm going to need to remit on a quarterly basis. So speaking of paying for all those things, how am I going to do that with my new bank account that now has some, money popped into it from overseas? Well, of course, we have the old stalwart, which is cash. And in some cases, actually, cash can be very handy. Especially if you want to tip someone, it can be a little bit more of a hassle to, try to figure out how to do that with all the other payment methods. Giving a tip is always much easier just handing a little bill. On the flip side, however, having to carry all the bills and then coins especially can be kind of a hassle. Certainly I'm not used to doing it. My wallet just fits cards and I don't even carry bills around at all. So I'm hoping to go mostly cashless and, more about that in a moment. But, it can be a pain, especially because in Thailand, one, the bills are a lot taller than the US dollar. So if you bring your American wallet over here, they're likely to kind of stick out of there. So you might need to, like pony up and get a new wallet that fits Thai bills. So that's kind of annoying. But more so is the coin. So not only, are the coins relatively big and heavy, but there are some lighter coins that you still have to carry, but these are like satang coins. Now, one satang is basically the Thai penny. It's 1/100th of a baht, like 100 satang make up 1 baht, just the way that 1 penny makes up a dollar. But, you don't really pay anything that's like 1 satang anymore. I think really most likely you're looking at 25 satang and 50 satang coins. But anyway, point being, that 1 baht is about 3 cents. So, the 25 satang coin is about 1/4 of 3 cents. But anyway, it's just, you may have to carry these kind of small changes that can be hard to end up using because with inflation, of course, they're not that useful anymore, but you might end up with some change for some reason. So anyway, I'm sure you very clearly get the picture that I don't like having to deal with cash, but understand that every now and then I'm going to have to make sure to have some cash in order to pay a tip, for instance, and that's of course okay. So how about credit cards? Well, we are, after all, very much all about credit card rewards on this channel. I've got tons of content, a whole playlist about credit cards that you can check out. Now, in terms of the acceptance here in Thailand, of course, Visa has the highest acceptance, followed by MasterCard. American Express is going to be a lot harder, and you know that that's the case in the United States as well, but it is even more so abroad. Though interestingly, I do see a lot of ads for American Express here in Japan, so I guess they're really trying to increase their presence, or maybe they just know that every now and then I research the Amex Platinum, and so YouTube is picking up on that and giving me those ads. In any case, my go-to credit card strategy, which is the Capital One Duo, that's the Capital One Venture X and the Savor card, those are going to be widely accepted in Thailand, which is pretty great. You can even use credit cards at the MRT, which is the subway system, which is excellent in Bangkok. Unfortunately, you can't use it for the BTS SkyTrain. This is kind of the elevated railway, which is really, really awesome, and generally my preferred way of travel, maybe just out of habit, because when I was there previously, over the years, the MRT really wasn't as big of a thing as it is now, and so we were all kind of used to taking the SkyTrain. Little side note here is that while you can't use your Visa card to take the SkyTrain, you can still go cashless. You can get what's called a Rabbit card, and this is basically, a rechargeable transit pass card. But the great thing about it is there are also a number of participating locations where you're able to use that Rabbit card to, like at the food court at Siam Paragon and other places like that. So that's pretty awesome. And if you're ever in Japan, there's a similar system as well with JR's product, the Eco Card. You can use this at the airport and really all across Japan. Even up in Hokkaido, we were able to use it all kinds of places, so it's pretty sweet. So how about places that don't take, the foreign Visa and MasterCard? Well, you can still go cashless because there's a lot of prompt pay, or basically QR code based payments here. In the US, we haven't gone this way. We've gone the route of, having Apple Pay or Google, Apple or Google take care of that with Apple Pay or Google Pay. Samsung had their Samsung Wallet as well. So they kind of became sort of the ones that did the front end of this, and we did it through NFC instead. But in Asia, QR code payment is very common. So you've got things like, WeChat Pay, Alipay, Line Pay, there's all these different kinds of pays. But Prompt Pay is basically, the one that they call Scan in Thailand. And so all the major banks, you're going to be able to use QR code based payments. And this has trickled down. Basically, anyone with a smartphone can accept these. So you can pay for this at smaller restaurants that aren't hooked up with Visa, MasterCard network, right? You can pay for this even at, street vendors and small vendors like that. As long as they have a cell phone, then they're going to be able to take payments that way. So between credit cards and Scan, I should be able to go cashless and take care of most of the payments that I need to make. Every now and then, again, I will need some cash for tips. But how about bills and stuff? So, we talked about sort of spending money type things. What about bills? Well, a lot of these, of course, we can just set up as, regular automatic payments, right? Just like we do in the States. But an interesting thing here is that you can actually go to convenience stores like 7-Eleven in order to make utility bill payments if you had to. Like if you didn't have a Thai bank account, I guess that would be one way to do it. Much more convenient though to have a Thai bank account, especially because, well, you got to pay rent. And so with rent, I will of course do a bank transfer to my landlord's account. So to sum up, I'm looking at Siam Commercial Bank as my personal choice. I will be moving money over using Charles Schwab's international online transfers at $15 a pop. And then hopefully I'll be able to go mostly cashless using the Capital One Duo whenever possible. And then at other times I'll be using, of course, Scan to pay for most things. And then I'll have a little bit of cash as well for tips. So hopefully that covers the banking here in Thailand. If there are any great tips that I've missed that you have for us, do let us know in the comments. Hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please hit the like button and consider subscribing. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.